Hi, I'm Paul Brodie. We are back in my shop. Welcome. Mitch behind the cameras. It was in the early days when he had one camera, one iPhone. We have progressed. So I want to talk to you about a couple of things. We're having a sale on merchandise, 18% off. We've had a very good response. It lasts till Christmas. I want to talk about subscribers for a moment. Mitch tells me that we are 63 subscribers short of 80,000. That would be a real nice number to hit by Christmas. So if you want to do us a little favor, if you subscribe, I know a lot of you are not subscribed, probably at least half of you haven't subscribed. So if you could find it somewhere in to help us out, we just need 63, but more is better too. All right, we're on Aermacchi. So what I've got here is I took the carb off the bike, a Delotto carburetor, and what we're replacing it with is a McKinney copy. Sudco went out of business, and so I can't buy real McKinneys, or it's harder to. So this is made in China. We'll see how it works. It was only $80, and the manifold, when I was heavily into Aermacchis years ago, when I was racing and making race parts and things like that, one of the parts that I made was an intake manifold that would fit a 34 McKinney carburetor, because that's what people would use on their race bikes. I would make these, I'd probably make 8 or 10 at a time, and then I would sell them on my website. So I want to show you what I did to, I call it invisible welding. I had a fixture. I made up the flange. I would put the tube in. There would be a couple screws here to hold it in place. And then there'd be like some sort of a V-block here to get the angle right for the tube. And then after that, I would tack weld. Very, very small tack welds. I'd do about 4 tack welds around like that, and then I would take it off, and then see how smooth that is? That is silver solder, and I would silver solder around there, and I would cover up all of the tack welds, and so I didn't have to do any filing at all, because if you're a good silver solderer, you can make that very smooth. And then I would flip it over. I don't have the carb on, so ignore the carburetor. And then I would TIG weld all around here, in between the tube and the flange. Just do a little tiny TIG tack, and I don't want to make it hot. So I've got the amperage down pretty low, and I do a little bit at a time, because I don't want to melt this, right? Don't want to melt it. And then after I've gone all around, I go to the belt sander outside. Invisible welding. You cannot tell how that's held on unless I tell you. So now you're being told. We're going to go over to the bike now, and we're going to see what this looks like on the bike. I haven't actually had it on the bike yet. I've got a fiber washer here, keeps the heat away. I got my Allen screws made out of stainless steel. And I want to see how close. Do you see how much longer this one is? It might be hitting the frame a little bit. This one is also at a more sensible angle. This one is really, it works, but this is a better angle. We're going to go to the carburetor. No, we're taking the carburetor to the bike, and we're going to see what it looks like. Thanks for tuning in. There we go. Look at that. That fits. And that's where you go. And then the throttle cable, it clears the down tube. So that actually works out quite fine. I don't have to do any sort of grinding or anything. And okay, we're going to go back to the back to the bench. We're going to talk about the wheel now. I've done a bunch of work on the wheel since last episode because in spite of all working with the jig and the reamer and the drill, and the spokes didn't quite fit. They were close. So I'm going to show you what I did, okay? In last episode, we were using this fixture here, and I have a reamer. Yep, there's my reamer. I went out and bought a reamer for $45, and all the holes were drilled, reamed a little bit larger and at a slightly different angle because the spoke holes would only let the spokes do that, and they actually had to do that. So we changed the angle a little bit, and then at the end of the video I tried to put the spokes in, and the spokes sort of went in, but they were binding. So what I did since last episode, I put an axle in my vise, and I put the wheel on like this, and then I took, I cut a spoke shorter. This is about the length of the spokes in the wheel, and I would put this into the spoke hole, and I would see where it's angling. So now I had a much better indication of what was going on. So one of the things that was going on is that the angle wasn't from the spoke hole. It didn't go out enough to the holes. I took a file and I filed the rim. I filed the hole in the rim, and I made it so that the hole was now angling much better at the hub. So that was the first thing. And then what I noticed was that because of the location of the hole, here's my sketch of the rim. This is the outer rim, and this is the inner where you've got the bulge. I can't think of what else to call it. That's what holds the spoke. And what happened was that it was hitting here. And then there was a gap. There was a gap here. So that's not good because you're putting way too much pressure on this part of the nipple. So what I had to do was to take this tool. This turned out to be so handy. It's got a foot control. Look at that. And it's variable speed. You don't have to go full speed with this. It'll cut very nicely at about a medium speed. So I got in there, going to show you on the rim, and I gouged in there. I took out, this is kind of what I did. Kind of went like that. Can you see that? How I took that much out there? Right there. And then after the spoke would seat all around and be at the right angle, I knew I could go on to the next hole, and I did that 36 times. It had to be done. Let's go over to the wheel, and I'm going to show you a couple things there. I've taken out a nipple here. Can you see how using that rotary burr, I got it? Can you see right there? Can you see the marks at the edge? So that allows this to see how there's hardly any gap there. Maybe there's a little bit of gap. Not bad. It's way better than it was because there was at least a good 1/16 of an inch there. So this has solved that problem. And then also, what's going on? Some of the spokes are a little bit longer, a little too long. I have to torque the spokes after true the wheel. That's what we're up to today. Can you see how there's a little sharpness there? So how I take that off is I use my belt sander. Remember my belt sander? And that just goes in there like that. And I smooth it down. So I just go around it looking for the high ones, and there are a few, not many. That's how I fix that. So what we're going to do today is to work on the wheel. Can you see how it's not true? All I did was to make the spokes basically finger tight. So I'm going to show you what I do. I made up a stand, that holds the wheel bearings. So I know that the wheel's going to spin true on the bearings. And then I take this, it's my magnetic base for my dial indicator. Then I add on this piece, and I've got a 1/4 inch rod, and then I got some tubing. It's just plastic tubing, and that fits over there so that I can put this on like that. I can run this plastic, which isn't going to make any marks on the rim. So there's two things I got to do. I got to get the wheel true in the up and down, and also in the side to side. So it's a combination, and if you look here, it's not actually, it's not that bad. Okay, see there, it's just hitting. You can actually hear it. So what I need to do is to pull these spokes in, and then when there's a gap, I can undo the spokes, release them just a little bit. So I'm going to sit in my seat, and I'll play with it a little bit, and you'll see, hopefully you'll see what I do, and if you have any questions, just raise your hand. What I'm looking for now here is the space, and it needs to be consistent, but it's not that bad, because what you'll notice is I've got some side-to-side run out. So I'm going to work on that next, and then I'll come back to the up and down, or the horizontal component. So that's okay. So now we'll move this here like that. Actually, I'll put it the other side. That's better for you to see, I think. Ooh, look at that gap. So you see here how it's just hitting. So what I'm going to do is to pull over these spokes on this side of the hub. They're going to pull over the rim, and then I might have to loosen some of these spokes to allow it to come over. So we're right here. Oh, I got a loose spoke. Okay. So at the point where it touches the rim, it's too close, so I loosen these spokes and I tighten these spokes. So that's basically what I'm up to. It's just a little bit at a time. And a rule in wheel building is 1/4 turn at a time. That's what a lot of the books will want you to adhere to. So that's kind of what I'm doing, except when the spoke's way too loose. But after you bring them up to tension, 1/4 turn at a time, that's a good rule to adhere to. So there you go. Oh, look at that. Right in here. Getting pretty close. There we go. So it's touching right in here, right about here. So what I'm doing is I'm watching the gap here. Can you see how it's not bad? What I'm going to do now is going to move this around, and we're going to look at the up and down, because now we're really close on the side-by-side. And you can see here how much this spoke is sticking out. For some reason, this one is quite a bit longer. So after we got the spokes all torqued up, I'm going to show you how I used the belt sander just to take off that top there. I'm not going to do a whole lot here because it's pretty good. So right here. So what I need to do is, oh, this spoke's loose, so. You can actually hear it, can you? Right there. Look at that, it's not bad at all. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around, and I know there's some spokes that aren't very tight. I'm just going to see if I can put a little bit of tension into all the spokes. And then we're going to put this wheel onto the bike, and we're going to look at the dish, where it sits in between the fork blades. So I'm going to use this. This is my outside dividers, and that's going to go between the rim and the fork blades. I've got the positioning of the backing plate. That's going to hold the wheel. So the wheel goes over to the left side of the bike, and that's when we measure from the rim over to the forks. And then once that's done, once we got it like that, then it's just a matter of making sure that all the spokes are torqued down, and then got to find a tire. Avon Roadrunner 9090 H18. They don't make them anymore, and that's what I'd like to have. So if anyone has one, a used one, a few years old. I got one on the other wheel. It's 25 years old. That's like a little sketchy, right? Okay, there's my spacer. That sets the distance of the backing plate. Come on. There we go. So this is where I use a pair of dividers. So there we go. I've got basically, that's pretty good. And then over this side, how about that, eh? Can you see that? I don't have to move it. I know there's not. Anyway, take my word for it. It's the same on both sides. I don't have to move the wheel. I think that's the first time that I got the dish right. It's called the dish. It's where the rim sits on the hub, in the fork or the frame. Wheel dish. Wow, that's pretty cool. So if I take out the wood now, I don't have a brake cable hooked up, but this is basically what happens. There we go. It just has to seat in. Whew. Well, I did not see any hands get raised up with questions, but if you have any questions or comments, you can add a comment. That would be much appreciated. Please subscribe. We'd like to get to 80,000 subscribers, and we're so close. Buy merchandise. It's Christmas. Thank you for watching. We like coffee. Coffee helps our channel to thrive. And we'll see you next week. Thanks. This is my belt sander. I built it in the shop here. We have a video. It's had quite a few hits. You might be interested in seeing how the belt sander got made. I'm taking off an old belt. It's a 1/4 by 24. I like 80 grit. And very happy with my belt sander. You can buy these, well, not exactly the same. And don't buy from China because they're not the same as the North American ones. So we're going to do this one right here. See how that one sticks up? Resting one hand on here for support. Nice. Yes, I need to be a little more careful. I hit the rim, but that's not going to have many effects. So that's how we do it.